Today I'm at a site off of Race Road in Howard County in the woods. Obviously near the train, you can hear that. This is the area where I had found a glass pit. Actually, it was a glass hill, a big mound of glass just piled up. And as I dug down, or as I cleaned up the glass that was on the surface, hauled it off. It kept going down into the dirt. So I've been digging down and trying to remove as much as I can. It is kind of tedious work, unlike some of the other work you've seen where you just grab a big object like a tire or a stove or something like that and work on hauling it out. This is really tedious. And every time I've come down to this site, I keep finding new things. For example, just now, this tree which had gotten knocked over, I kind of pulled the roots aside and exposed all kinds of glass and metal and things that are just kind of embedded in the roots of this tree. And if you look at this, they got jars just all mixed in with the roots. Some of them are intact, some are broken into lots of pieces. This one's interesting. Got roots going right through the middle of it in some cases. Makes it hard to remove. You got some interesting little containers, little white glass, you get blue glass, soda bottles, medicine bottles, milk bottles, of course rocks, some decorative glass, some plate glass. Somebody just had a certain spot they used to dump all their glass materials in one place for years. Probably used to be a house close by. This is the place where they disposed of it all. Look at all these big pieces. If I keep going, this will probably go on for at least a foot down below the ground. I have had a few interesting bottles that were intact. Some old soda bottles from brands I've never heard of. Before Coke and Pepsi took over the world, there seemed to be hundreds of bottlers around the country, local bottlers making their own soft drinks. Baby food jars. There's a nice little Pond's cold cream jar. I find lots of those. Little medicine bottles. I mean, drugstores probably had lots of these empty bottles, and they would custom make your prescription and fill these little bottles with the number of pills and then close them up and then hand them to you back in the day. And so many of these bottles have a little message like, do not refill under penalty of law. Federal law prohibits resale. Things like that. Half pint. If you just scrape the surface, I mean, there's more and more. There's another like maybe a little perfume bottle here. Some sort, maybe an ink bottle. I see lots of those. People used to use shoe polish back in the day. We don't use those so much anymore. I see lots of that. More jars. Broken pieces, intact pieces. That's an interesting shape. That used to be. You have these tiny little things like this, which look like they're used in a scientific lab maybe for extracting out small pieces, small amounts of liquid. I guess you dip that in with your finger over the lid and then pull it out of a larger container and then measure out very small amounts. Just by lifting your finger, you can add drops. Maybe somebody dumped their whole drugstore here, who knows. Anyway, this is tedious work. It's actually fun because you do find some interesting things like old beer bottles, old Dr. Pepper bottles every once in a while. Some, like I said, some brands that I've never heard of, and they're kind of neat. So I spend an hour or two here every couple weeks, and you end up with a pile that looks like this after a while. Then I bag them up, haul them out to the road, and the county will haul them off for us and make this area a little safer. A couple other things I wanted to point out. You definitely want to have gloves if you're going through piles of glass like this. I've been using these rubber lined gloves you get from the home improvement stores, pretty cheap. And I have not had a piece of glass break through this rubber on these gloves yet. So these have been pretty good for me. Every once in a while you see a bottle just kind of sticking up out of the ground, either laying horizontal or like this one's perched here. And a little inside the bottle will be like a little terrarium growing inside with a little bit of sun hitting the glass when it's all covered up like this. There'll be a little bit, just enough sun to support a little micro plant community inside. I've always been fascinated by that. So you just have a little bit of dirt, and the plants will grow up towards the light as far as they can. So here's an interesting find. I picked up this bottle thinking I had some plants growing inside of it, if you can see that yellowish stuff in there. But when I look in the end, you look in there, somebody's been laying eggs inside here, and this little cavity they had in the ground, maybe a frog, who knows, something crawled in there and laid some eggs, it looks like. So I think the goal of cleaning up an area like this that you might spot in the woods, if you find anything like this, I would say just try to get any of the glass that's within a few inches of the surface, especially the jagged stuff that's sticking out. Lightly scrape at the surface, see what you find. If it keeps going, if you want to keep digging up, go for it. But I think it's kind of unreasonable to expect us to I don't think it's realistic to dig the entire glass pit out, which may have been accumulating over a couple decades. I wanted to show you the kind of a sampler of stuff I pulled out just now in the past 15-20 minutes. Some interesting things. This looks like the top of a milk bottle here. The old style milk bottles. Find lots of those. These used to be made to be reusable. So you, obviously the milk delivery guy would pick up your empties and then bring back new bottles. You can see how thick this glass is. I mean, back in the olden days, they made things to last, to be reused. So look how thick that glass is there. That's just like, this bottle was meant to be reused as many times as possible until it finally was unusable, and then you throw it away. Nowadays we recycle glass, of course, but this actually was a drinking glass here. We got some green bottles, probably a beer bottle, some bottles of maybe vinegar. This one looks like a ketchup bottle. I've seen lots of these, but it doesn't have a screw top. It just has a push-on, pull-off top, so you know it's kind of old. There's a miscellaneous collection of little bottles here. Some pieces of pottery or planter maybe. We got a little plate, half of a plate there. Somebody's shoes. I'm not sure how that got in the glass pile, but stuff happens. Alcohol bottles, a piece of metal of some sort. I'm not sure what that was. But you do find light bulb pieces in here. Anything that was related to or close to glass, like maybe pieces of a chandelier. Lots of things. So my goal here is to just, again, just get all the stuff off the surface here. And then after a couple more years of just leaves falling and more soil forming, pretty soon it'll be safe to walk through here. It won't be a big deal. And you'll never know it was here. There's a nice little collection of worms holing out in the bottle. Maybe it was from tequila. What do you think? The escapee. Look what we got here. Root beer.